Well, this morning we left Mount Isa, so we're heading to Winton today
to do the
dinosaur thing tomorrow.
Is that tomorrow?
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't know where we're staying tonight, do we?
No. We'll find
There's
something.
that free camp. Sorry, it's a $5 camp just outside of Winton, or there's that Pelican Caravan Park, which is reasonably priced too.
I stopped for morning tea at the Mary Kathleen Memorial Park in Cloncurry, and Tracy tells me Pinky's been here before.
She certainly has.
But that's how good my memory is.
We've been here before.
We've been here before.
Because I had no paddling in the rock pool.
No paddling in Rockpool. So we sat Pinky up there, didn't we? So there's the rock pool.
Lovely.
Yeah, so we did this tour last time we were here.
Oh,
Went in and had a look at everything. Yeah.
Yeah. All the rocks, 16,000 rocks and minerals, Burton Wills history.
wow.
Just grab my coffee and
Fascinating.
There's Pinky patiently waiting. There's Pinky sitting on the waterfall. No paddling in pool. Pinky, get out of the waterfall. We're on the Landsborough Highway heading towards Winton, and we're about 200 kilometres at the moment from Winton. This road, highway, the highway is called the Landsborough Highway, and it's very bumpy, very bumpy. It's although it's bitumen, it's the soil underneath the road has moved, and it's very bumpy and dippy, and yeah, not very nice driving. Very plain, very flat, and trees follow the creek beds, and this is cattle farming out here. Well, this is the main street of Winton, and we're on our way out to the Age of Dinosaurs tour. These are sheep. That's sheep made out of cogs and
Yeah. It's cool.
it's nice to see they've done a bit to lift the centre street of the town. Well, this is the road up to the Dinosaur Exhibition. You can drop your caravans down the bottom if you're not confident your car will get up the hill, or you can drive it up. And we're going to have a go at driving up, aren't we? Of course. called the jump up. Area back there too. Wow, look, plane out there. Got a hairpin bend.
It's no different than like the Blue Mountains. Is it?
Oh, really? Oh, lost a bit of steam. Oh wow, look at that. All the planes. Another hairpin.
Are you behind us?
Oh, a bit further back. Up on top now.
Wow.
Here we are at Australian Age of Dinosaurs. Wow, big complex.
Hey guys, just letting you know, dog has to stay in the car park. Yep. Okay, yeah, all good. No worries. Yeah, there's if you want to, Oh, you're not doing it? Okay, that's no worries. So the entire thing will be about 4 hours. But if you don't want to do the full thing, you can just do one section, and the shortest one will be a half-hour tour. So if you yeah, so they're all guided tours, but yeah, so they leave sort of on the hour and a half.
That's the sign.
Banjo. He's got a skinny jaw, doesn't he? This is the view from the reception area of the dinosaur. So we're walking down to fossil collection room, is that right?
No,
Preparation
the
room.
laboratory. The preparation laboratory, yeah.
Preparation laboratory.
And the fly level today is extremely high.
Yeah, but I
High
haven't.
level, yeah. So that's why we're wearing our...
They're wearing their
nets.
fly nets, but I know I haven't got one yet. It's only when you sit still.
Actually, it was only back at the shop. I might just check it out.
Back at the shop. Oh, there's one. One found me. But it's interesting walking along the top of this mesa, isn't it?
Yeah. I've never actually been on the top of a mesa before.
No. The building over there.
And I think, can I go over there?
You can go to the edge, but there's no safety railing.
No, but we've got to go somewhere on a bus.
Yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah, back when we go
that's-
back.
back around.
Yep.
This is the waiting room at the laboratory.
Start. So no eating or drinking. Water is fine, just make sure the lid is on nice and tight. And if you need a sip of water, make sure you're away from any railings before you do so. Photos are completely fine as well, as long as they're for your own personal use, so you're welcome to put them up on social media as well. The only time that you need to speak to our management team is if it's for educational or commercial use. So we don't want any papers published on what currently we're working on because we're still working on it. Alright, so tickets ready and I'll let you head inside. If you like to, yes, we're ready. Alright, so I'm going to introduce you first to David Elliott. He's our founding father here at the Australian Age of Dinosaurs Museum. And one famous day in 1999, he almost went head over heels on his bike while he was up on the sheep because he almost tripped over a very suspicious looking rock. So that's similar to what the photos are up the top there. That's what he tripped over. So that is our dinosaur bike. So when he saw it, he went, not sure if that's wrong at all. He sent some photos to the Queensland Museum and they said, congratulations David, you found the dinosaur bone. So here in this table here, we've got a setup of what you saw that day. Can anyone spot the dinosaur fossil? That one up there, yep, that's one of them. Got a couple more. That one here is Elle, yep, you're clearly an expert. Yep, so that's similar to what David saw. So what we're looking for is that porous texture. Sometimes it does look similar to our fossilized wood here or our petrified wood, but that's typically what we're looking for. So when David sent a picture over to Queensland, they got very excited because at the time we didn't actually have a lot of dinosaur fossils. So they did a dig similar to that picture up there, and they didn't really find much else, but they did find the rest of that bone, and it turned out to be a sauropod femur. So femurs are your thigh bone, sauropods are your long neck, long tail, plant-eating dinosaurs, and we get them pretty much all the time here at Winton, so that's why they're part of our logo. So that's what they found. At the time, it was the biggest dinosaur bone that they've ever found. So Queensland told David, hey David, if you find any more, let us know. Because obviously they want to know if there's anything else around. David being a third generation grazier, so his father and his father before that have been working the land for a long time, he knew that they didn't go deep enough. Now typically on most other digs, if you dig only about 30 centimetres deep, you're going to find the rest of it. But here in Winton, we have something called black soil. So black soil is our top surface layer. Through most of the year, it is cracked. And what happens is that anything from the surface ends up pulling through those cracks, ending up in the bottom. But then when it rains, it swells up. So anything that's on the bottom, it starts getting pushed up to the surface. So we call that self-mulching soil. So anything from the top pulls down to the bottom, anything from the bottom gets pushed to the top. So that takes a long time. It takes a couple of thousand years for something to reach the surface. But that's how we get our dinosaur bone. They are getting pushed up by the black soil. And it's, for David, it's very annoying because it keeps pushing out his fence posts. So he already knew about this black soil, so he knew that they needed to dig down deeper. So that's what we do in our dinosaur digs today. We actually have to remove that black soil to get to the good stuff. So we get our big diggers, we can slowly mulch that black soil back. Sometimes we do hit bone that is slowly making its way up. But typically we want to get down to the bone layer, which is more of a yellowy, reddy soil. And that's where we hit our good bone. So on this setup here, we've kind of done a recreation on how our bones look. And we're looking for that lovely yellow soil. So our pink tags show us the bone. So there's one coming through this way, one that way as well. So we've done a little bit of a recreation about how we do our digs today. They are not done by paleontologists, by the way, they're all done by people from the public, so you guys. So if they come, we do a big fundraising event to raise money for the museum to let people come on our digs. You get luxuries like a portal and a beer or wine at the end of the day. So it is an 18+ event, but we provide food, shelter, toilet, so that we can move it to the lab. So when we first find them, they're very, very fragile. So you can't pick it up and just move them because it'll fall apart in your hands. So first what we do once we've hit bone is we straight away put paraloid on it. So paraloid are bits of plastic melted in acetone, which is a type of acid. And when we put that on the bone, what happens is that the bone soaks it up. So it goes into this little internal structure. The acetone starts evaporating away, which leaves the plastic behind. So that plastic keeps the bone nice and strong, which means we can do something like this to it. So this is how we move it to the lab here. So first what we do, we've got our boil. So everyday kitchen boil that you cook your modern day dinosaurs in. It's chickens, right? Like we didn't get that joke. So, and then the next layer, we put wet newspaper. So wet newspaper sounds a bit funny, but the reason we do that is to help with our plaster. So that's the most important step. It keeps our bone nice and strong, and then it's pretty happy to see these plaster jackets for several years. So that's what we've got for these shelves back here. So the oldest ones are from 2003. So some of them have been sitting on the shelf for a very long time, but there is a reason for that. So typically we try and get through our older jackets first before we do anything else, but sometimes we find something particularly special that we have to prep out straight away. So that's pretty much what's happened to some of these fossils over this way. So you can feel any differences between the three. So they're all femurs, they're all thigh-bones from our big plant-eating dinosaurs. That's what I'm talking about. So these guys, this is basically the finished product. This is what they look like when they're all done from our prep team. Can anyone feel any differences or see any differences between the three? To that black soil. So what happens with the black soil? Moving around the fossil is good for it, so sometimes they get crushed, which is what's happened to Tracey here. Sometimes they get cracked, which is what happened to Anne. Judy, on the other hand, she was not touched by that black soil. She was pretty happily situated in that bone layer, so she's pretty nice. Another difference between Judy is you can see she's quite smaller than our other two. So Judy's pretty special because we think we have a sub-adopt. And we know that because at the end of the bone here, it's pretty pitted is what we call it. So the ends of the bone actually haven't ossified yet, so it's still soft. So she would have been about a teenager, not fully grown yet. In terms of dinosaur terms?
Yes, some dinosaur terms in terms of years.
So we're still trying to figure out the life stages of these dinosaurs. So we think they would have roughly had the same lifespans as humans. So she could be probably between 15 and 20. So not quite fully grown, but also she wasn't a baby. She wasn't a juvenile. Because we do also have juveniles as well. Well, that's a very secret thing we're not supposed to talk about. It will come out hopefully in a couple months. You heard nothing.
Are they definitely female?
No. So if you hear anything referring to he or she or any of the names, that's just what we named them. We don't actually know the sex of these dinosaurs. That is very recent research. So in the past, the only time you would know if something's male or female is if they actually had an egg in their body cavity. So you can't even say sitting on a nest, definitely female, because the dads make good parents too. So we know that from our emus and our other birds. So the modern day dinosaurs, we know that the parental care very much will differentiate between the two parents. Doesn't matter if it's male or female. So with these guys, if we want to know for sure if they're a female, we are looking for medullary bone. So medullary bone is only found in sexually mature females. So with birds and crocodiles, that is an extra calcium deposit to help put the calcium on their eggs. Chucky's not a dinosaur, but does anyone know what Chucky might have been and not cheap? So there's the head here. And then we do have bits of vertebrae and osteoderms as a clue for you.
The big bird.
Not a big bird. No. Bird, funny story. When they first uncovered Chucky, they didn't think it was something similar to a chook, or a chicken, which is what the name comes from, but not a bird. Not a dinosaur either. We're talking much older. Crocodile. Yeah. So Chucky is a crocodile, and we knew Chucky was special when we first pulled him out because we've only got two described species before Chucky, and then Chucky's the third. So we knew we had something pretty special. So they sent it to Melbourne to get a CT scan, and then they found something pretty special. They found a dinosaur. So there was Chucky ate a dinosaur before Chucky died. So what we have in Chucky's gut is an ornithopod dinosaur. So ornithopods are quite much smaller than our sauropods. They are plant eaters as well, but typically we usually only get the big stuff because it gets crushed up pretty easily from that black soil.
But Chucky is not very big.
No. So, but Chucky would have been between 2 and 2.5 meters. So Chucky would have been around about the same size as your freshwater crocodile today. But that ornithopod in their gut, that was only a juvenile. So she ate a very small ornithopod dinosaur. And usually we wouldn't get that because they get crushed up. But Chucky has perfectly packaged it for us, so it was nice and protected. Also, the first ornithopod that we found here in Winton. So we've got plenty of research still to do on Chucky. Also, Chucky wasn't prepped out properly yet. So a lot of it's still in that rock. But we have Chucky on display because we can now talk about something very special. So first direct evidence of crocodiles eating dinosaurs. We knew they probably did it because that's what crocodiles do. They will eat anything they can get their teeth on. But this is first direct evidence in the world. Now, flying reptile, sorry, not a dinosaur. So Longreach is only 11% complete, which doesn't sound like much, but it's the most complete pterosaur that we have in Australia. So we think that Longreach would have been 4 meters wingtip to wingtip, and that's because we have a pretty complete left wing here. So they've got one long finger that stretches out, and we have most of it here, which is pretty good. We also know Longreach was a fish eater, so would have been happily flying along. He's got interlocking teeth, so that interlocking teeth configuration means very good for fish, because fish are slippery. Would have been able to fly along, scoop up the fish, happily chop them down. So Longreach is also a holotype, so that's what we call these two, first of its kind. So that is pretty special, and that's why Longreach is here as well. So we also have part of her thoracic section, so we're talking ribs and sternum, so that's that big bone in the middle of your chest. We also have humerus roughly where they were, her femurs were roughly where they were. We do have a pelvis as well, so the pelvis is pretty good to identify what kind of dinosaur she was. We are missing her tail, which isn't uncommon for us, but we do have a theropod tooth where her tail should have been. So I wonder what happened to that. Now, theropods are our meat-eating dinosaurs. So part of the reason why Judy was pretty much straight away put on these tables, so she was only dug up in 2017, and she's been on this side of the fence ever since. So what we're looking at, she is a subadopt, so that's part of the reason why, because we don't get many of them. So we want to be able to look at them as soon as we can. But another reason is this shaded area here. So we think we have gut contents. So gut contents, out of all the dinosaurs that we have in the world, there are only 6 herbivorous dinosaurs that have gut contents. We think we have number 7. So that's another reason why we've got to prep her out so our paleontologists can have a good look at her. So what we want to know from Judy is whether she is a grounder or a grazer. We're fairly confident that she is a plant-eating dinosaur. So we want to know, did she eat leaves or did she eat small bushes on the bottom? So that's another reason why we're pretty happy that we've got the neck articulated, because that would also show us how she would have held her head. We don't unfortunately have Beauty's head, but we do have a couple of teeth. So heads and tails are pretty uncommon for us. We're very lucky if we find one or the other, and that's mostly because they were probably very tasty. So the head's pretty fragile bone, easy to crunch up and eat, lovely juicy organs in there. Tail, also very easy to take off the front. Well, the leg bones, you see how big they are, they're really quite heavy. So hopefully we'll salvage them and take them anyway. So this will only take away 1 to 2 grams of rock at a time. So very delicate work. And then we do get bigger tools as well, so you might see them also using friend pens. This one, that's our medium tool, so it takes away more of the rock around it, so we can get it nice and close. So you can imagine it does take us a very long time to crack out one dinosaur. If we're only using little tiny tools, then our work is yes.
That's a nice bit of veneer there.
Yep.
It's nice and smooth, but the rest of it's been bile and stuff. So it's not a very attractive bit. And the back side is internal bone. So that's what the inside bone. So I'm assuming that these bits are sort of part of the other. Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, you you can kind of see that there's something in there, can't you?
Yeah. That's right. I'll have a dig around later. But I also do this. So this is about the size of a toothpick, and it's just a thin bit of bone. But I think it was probably thin bone, right? So thin, but it's only the veneer through it. Yeah. So yeah, I'll probably have to use a special tool to get that through. But I'm determined to get it out. Yeah. And these would be what tiny bits in. I think this is a bit of turtle. Yeah. Over on that side, you can sort of still start seeing a part of the turtle shell. So I'm pretty sure that's
This is from the lookout, looking back towards reception. Sort of like a bit of a valley in the side of the mesa.
Pretty much irreplaceable. We went out on a dig, we found some dinosaurs, and we realised when we were trying to compare them to what we know about dinosaurs in the area, we actually haven't found these guys before, so they're brand new species. They're the namesakes of the species. On the table down here, we have Banjo. You've met Banjo when you walked in. He's that big statue. He is an Australoventural wintonensis. He's also the guy that's up here as well. At the end, if you're at the back and you want to stand up to see, that's fine, as long as you're not getting in each other's way, that's all good. Down the floor here, we've got Matilda. She's a Titanosaurus Matildae. She's pretty exciting as well. She's a sauropod. So Banjo's a carnivore, similar, he's from the theropod family, kind of like a Megaraptor family. Matilda is a sauropod. Long neck, long tailed dinosaur. Right in the back corner over here, we have another sauropod. His name's Wade. He's scientific name is Titanosaurus aleatorum. Another sauropod, slightly different to Matilda. I'll point out the differences in their bones to you later on. On the table here, we have someone who snuck in. This is Alex. Alex is very special. He's not a holotype specimen. He's the same species as Matilda, Titanosaurus matildae, but he's got some special parts, so he's earned his place in this room. If you want to see say so. We're going to start with the hip, the pelvic girdle. It's down here. I'll put it up on the screen. We only have half of it on display. We do have the other half. It's just a bit hard to show. It's breaking up a little bit. Up here, you can see it turn around in a moment. She was very oval shaped. Her hips were very slender. She could fit through these trees in the forest and get through quite easily. She could also get more nutritious food, so she didn't need a more complex digestive system. Wade over here, who's one of the cousins, but not quite the same related. He's another sauropod. His hip pelvic girdle's right here. He was more round, more barrel-shaped. He couldn't fit in the tight forest, so he couldn't get the more nutritious food. His digestive system was bigger, so he could absorb all that food and the nutrition much easier, but he didn't need to get the really fresh new stuff. So slightly different species, still all sauropods. We've got the legs. These guys' legs were massive. If you've been to the laboratory, you would have seen the front leg of Matilda in the display. It's about 3 meters tall as you walked in. Quite massive legs. This is the femur, the thigh bone, right here. This is the thigh bone of the ramen ball. Quite big, quite massive. Matilda's is much bigger, as you can see. We have the front leg. That's the one you would have seen in the laboratory. We were very lucky. We got the complete front leg, including all 5 toes. So we have them down here. So that's the toes, the foot, all the way up to the shoulder blade here. Quite amazing to get that much from one sample. We also have some ribs. Matilda wasn't made to be light like Banjo. She was made to be big. Pretty much, she didn't have to run fast. So her ribs were quite thick and quite strong. Just going through what we have here. So I've already gone through that his pelvic girdle was different to Matilda's. His was fused as well. And he was more round and barrel shaped. So we know if we find their hip bones, we know which type of sauropod we have. Wade is a Savanosaurus aleatorum, more equipped for that bigger, more open area. His feet were also a little bit different than Matilda's, so we find their feet, we know the difference as well. Wade's feet were more round. He was more adapted to stand on that soft soil instead of sinking in. Matilda was more likely to. They're both most commonly gonna sink in, but Matilda's more likely to than Wade. We have some other bits and bobs up here, but we have some beautiful vertebrae at the back. These guys had to find some way to lighten the load, so they did that with what's called spaghetti bones in their vertebrae. Think of a can of spaghetti, the air pockets and the sources of the bone. That's what the inside of these bones look like. They could push air from their lungs into their bones and it lightened the load for them. They didn't use it to breathe, but they could push air from their respiratory system through their bones. So it was mainly in their vertebrae. That's because that's the bit that they could lose some of that tensile strength without actually damaging their bodies, but also making themselves lighter. We have an interesting little triangle indent here. This is a crush mark. Wade has gotten stuck in the mud and passed away sadly, and then another sauropod has come along, decided they didn't want to get stuck, and they have stepped on Wade. So this happened after death and before fossilization. We do find a lot of crush marks on our sauropod bones. Wade's not the first, probably not going to be the last that we find. They either had no respect for the dead, or Wade might have been buried under something and they didn't realise what they were stepping on. He could have been buried under some water. Again, we have some more ribs, and just little bits and bobs. Here's a Titanosaurus Matildae, much like Matilda, except we were very lucky. We rarely find skull material from these dinosaurs. That's because their skulls weren't fused like ours. The bones sort of sat next to each other. And often predators would run away with the tail and the neck, so we don't get the heads much. But we found enough skull material to take a scan of the brain case, so we know the size of these guys' brains. Human brain, this big. Elephant brain, this big. Does anyone want to take a guess if a sauropod brain is bigger or smaller? Smaller. This is the size of a sauropod brain. Quite tiny, little elephant with a backpack is what I like to call it. Very small. Now we can't tell intelligence from the size of a brain, but we have the assumption that these guys didn't have to be intelligent. Their biggest predator was Banjo. These guys ran in herds, the sauropods. Banjo's not going to come after a herd of sauropods, he's only going to come after a really sick one or a really young one. Most of them would be protected by the herd. On top of that, trees have never run away from them. If they wanted food, they just had to turn their head, and their food was there. So they had a pretty cruisy life. We don't know how smart they were, but we have the assumption they didn't have to be.
drinking water bathrooms and bins. So if you're going to need any of those while you're here, this is where you're going to get them. In a moment, we'll head along the walkway over there and towards the big red building off in the distance and march to the Titanosaurus. And after that, we'll have a chance to walk down the canyon walkway, which is just over the bridge right here, about 400 metres down, turn around and come back up the same way. And as you go down there, you'll see that there's some pedestals with plaques on the top. Some of them have writing on them, some information you can read if you want to, and others have no writing on them at all whatsoever and just have pictures engraved into them. And the ones that only have pictures, no writing, are designed for you to take rubbings from them. So that's why you've got blank pages in your booklets and you've got little packets of pencils just on the drawers here. So help yourselves to the pencils if you want to do that. Pro tip, the yellow doesn't work as well as the other colours, it's just too faint, but I won't be marking them, so do whatever you like. And again, it's the ones that have no writing on them at all that are designed for the rubbings. Someone's going to try it on the ones with the writing and it's just not going to work very well, so being told. There's also some umbrellas there if you're worried about rain, or more likely if you just like some extra shade, so help yourselves to those as well. And then the shuttle will be leaving here to go back again every half an hour on the hour-and-a-half pass. If you have a tour... incorporate the whole jump up into the Natural History Museum because we've got plenty of space to expand up here. We've still got plenty left of the museum to build, and because we got it for free. If you have a look on the maps in your booklets, you'll see that that road that you drove down just then is called the Britton Way. It's named after the Britton family, particularly fellow Peter Britton, and they donated more than 4,000 acres of their property, including most of the jump up and a little bit of the plains. So they get a whole road named after them. We literally wouldn't be here without them. In the meantime, we're heading into the March of the Titanosaurs building, this big red one here, and you'll see we've got big slabs of rock with footprints fossilised into them. Not found up here on the jump up, but originally down on the plains in a paddock northwest of Winton. They've gone in, dug it all up and brought it up here to the museum, to the jump up, for reasons I'll explain about halfway through the tour. So it's not where it was originally found, but what we've got in here is the real original precious fossil that's been brought up here. We've got to look after it. So there's no eating or drinking permitted inside this building. What is that? We've got our big slabs of rock with footprints fossilised into them. Again, not found up here on the jump up, but brought up from down on the plains. And when these footprints were made, this was not hard rock, it was nice soft squishy mud. It's not a plasticine or soft clay consistency. Where it was soft enough for the feet of animals to squish into it easily, but when the feet lifted out, it was firm enough to hold on to the shape of those footprints, even as it got covered up with water, laid up with more mud and silt, and eventually buried and fossilised. And we believe these footprints were laid down over about a few days. So probably longer than one day, shorter than a week or so. I'm going to get you to use your imaginations for a moment. Rewind the clock about 95 million years, and imagine that all around this area we have a lush green temperate forest. There's a lazy river winding its way through the trees, and during this few days there's been a big downpour. The river has flooded, overflowed, and spilled out into our billabong out in front of us. There's turtles and crocodiles and fish swimming around in the murky, muddy water, and coming down from the forest to stroll by its shores, we've got dinosaurs like those long-necked, long-tailed sauropods, two-legged plant-eating ornithopods, and little scavenging saurus or theropods. So hopefully I've painted a picture for you of what we believe is capturing these footprints. Now you can have a close look at some of the brush strokes that build up that picture. So far in this site, we've identified at least three rather, possibly four individual sauropods. Up in this corner here, the sauropods are all milling about, hovering back and forth and squishing over their own footprints. All these rings in here are sauropod prints tranquilly on top of each other. We call this the Tranquil Zone. The first really clear sauropod print is this sort of heart-shaped line just here. That's the back right foot of a particular sauropod. The front right foot is there, but still all squished and warped. Then there's the back left foot, front left foot, right feet, left feet, right, start about later. So this particular sauropod, has walked the entire length of this trackside, starting at this end and walking away from us all the way down to the far corner of what's being preserved. It's our main sauropod trackway that we'll be following along. We've got the back left and front left feet here. Around the outside we've got this mulch covered in woodworks. And this has got some other animals swimming around here, in particular some crocodiles. And with crocodiles we're looking for 3 toes, 2 long and 1 short, going in a bit of a triangle. And one of these crocodiles starts right next to the rail just here, and it's swimming away from us, heading towards the big window on the other side. Little crocodile going along this path here. Then there's another one that starts out there, and it's swimming its way heading towards the red window. There's 3 particularly good prints in there for seeing those 2 long and 1 short toes, and it's making its way along this path on the side. One crocodile along there, and another crocodile. The other reason I want to explain why these footprints are up here on the jumper is they're down on the plains in the paddock where they were found. This trackside first came to light literally and figuratively in 2000 when the waterway called Snake Creek flooded, changed its course and started washing away Pinky and Pixar black soil. They exposed some of the footprints, which was actually a great start, but it meant someone was able to spot them and let us know that they were there and worth checking out in 2016. The trouble is this creek kept on coming. Kept on flooding and going dry, washing away the black soil, wearing down the rock, breaking chunks off and washing it downstream where it was lost. There are also trees like prickly acacias growing in this section. Their roots going down through the cracks and breaking it up even more. So we're faced with a really difficult decision. We either leave these footprints where they were found and pretty much guarantee that they will be obliterated within a few years, or we can spend a whole lot of time and money and effort digging it all up and bring it up here to jump up where it is safe. Since we're not in the paddock with the cows looking at these footprints, clearly we've gone for option number 2, walk them up here to the museum. And as far as we're aware, this is the biggest project of this type that's ever been attempted anywhere in the world. A pretty good reason, I should say, the next biggest trackside move that we're aware of is about 9 metres long. This one's more than 50, so a bit of a step up in scale. And I think there's a pretty good reason why it doesn't get done very often, because it's really, really hard work. Now, also, that's still part of our overall fossil trackside. This is a big pile of plant stuff. Leaves and sticks and branches and things that are floating in the water, pushed along by currents and wind, and shoved up in a pile in the corner to form a sort of natural dam. You can see similar structures being built up around creeks and Billabong still today. There's no actual pesticide wood left in here. We've got impressions left behind by some of the branches as they've sat in the rock and rotted away into it. And we suspect this natural dam may have been here before the sauropods walked through. The reason we think that is if you follow our name.
Just a look out. Family of little flying dinosaurs. So these boulders are similar to Devil's Marbles. Oh look, there's a family of little...
Oh, there they are.
There's a bigger one. So we're waiting for our shuttle ride back to the reception. So what do you think of all this?
Oh, it was really interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
All worth a visit.
definitely.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the people who donated this land on the top of the mesa and the family whose property in the distance actually had footprints on it, with bones and things, it's just amazing. They're so keenly interested. Yeah.
And that lifting, like that exhibition that we just went.
Footprints.
50 metres of footprint.
Yeah. And
Has
every
been
piece was taken up.
Taken up and transported up here to the mesa for preservation.
Yeah.
Because the river was washing it away.
And then every piece was put back together.
Yeah.
That would be just amazing, like just a big jigsaw puzzle. It would have taken them years to do that. Years and years. Hey.
But it was only recent, 2018.
Yeah. Wasn't it last year it was finished, wasn't it?
Yeah, it started in 2018, finished 2021.
Yeah. So it's only just been opened, the exhibition.
Very special.
So back at the fossil preservation, those people were volunteers.
Yes.
They've done a 10-day course to tell the difference between rock and bone fragments, and then they spend their time, and they're all visitors.
Yeah. Well, visitors and
They're just putting in a couple of weeks, and then they go home. It's just amazing.
It is amazing. Although, mind you, you'd really have to do the course because just looking at it just looks wrong.
Yeah, you can't really tell.
You can't really tell, so you really need to do the course.
Definitely.
All right, off to, where are we going to now? Longreach. Off to Longreach. So we're going down the jump up now from Australian Age of Dinosaurs. And look at that awesome view of the valley. Down to the valley floor. We're 90 kilometres north of Longreach, and I just thought I'd show you what the countryside's like. And we've been driving through this for the last hour, and hasn't changed much. And we can just see some green coming in on the left from a bit of a creek, I suppose. But it'll obviously be dry, and yeah, so it's just flat.
Right. Oh, it's a really big roundabout.
Welcome to Longreach. It's the bypass. Longreach Terrace Park.
See someone else in here, stay on the street.